Today I've got 6 easy classics of English and American literature for you, and a bonus book. When I say an easy classic, I'm talking about great books that are written in an English that is accessible, that is within reach to all. There is depth, there is poetry, there is poignancy, but at the same time, anybody can read them. Even if your first language is not English, even if you have an intermediate level, that will do. Of course, native English speakers can enjoy them too, and they do. They're classics after all. There is a difference between a book which is light and a book which is easy. A book which is light is also easy. It tells a story, but there's nothing beyond that. So, for example, Agatha Christie, it's a light read. You might enjoy it. However, it's just a story. I wouldn't call it literature. Whereas a book which is easy is not necessarily light. Most of the books I include here would fall into that category. They may have deeper or darker themes or touch on politics and satire, and there was also the poetic nature of the writing. And after reading them, they will change your worldview in some way or other. So if you've got an intermediate or even an advanced level of English, you're going to struggle with books such as Ulysses by James Joyce, or Moby Dick by Melville, or Lolita by Nabokov. And I hope this video will act as a starting point for a love of English literature. Most of the books included in this video are quite short. If you're reading a book in a foreign language, it generally takes longer if you have to look up the meaning of lots of words in the dictionary. So a text with 600 words can be daunting. Some of the works here are less than 100 pages long. I've got 6 classics for you today. 4 British, 2 American, 4 are by men, 2 by women, all of them wonderful. Plus the bonus book I mentioned. The bonus book, by the way, would not be considered a classic in the conventional sense, but I highly recommend it because it is a book that can be enjoyed even if you have a basic level of English. And for each book, I'll put a link in the description if you wish to purchase these books. They are affiliate links. However, some of these books are out of copyright, so you can obtain free copies on the internet or buy cheap editions at the bookshop. Another good reason for reading classics. And for each book, I'll give you a plot summary and read a paragraph or some quotes from it. So let's get started. Hello, welcome to LetThemTalkTV, and the first book is The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. Now, I must admit, when I read this book for the first time when I was 16, same age as the protagonist, Holden Caulfield, I became kind of obsessed by it. For any young person who senses that they don't belong, for all the misfits out there, for all the crazy ones, this book is for you. For me, it articulated how I felt at that tender age, and to this day its message resonates with awkward adolescents everywhere. It tells a story of Holden Caulfield, who, after being expelled from school, runs away to New York, where he spends 2 days trying to find some meaning to his muddled life. He has some mad adventures, like hiring a prostitute, but he doesn't do anything with her. He just talks to her. He's confused and angry and complains about all the phonies he sees all around him. And the 2 days are kind of a journey of exploration from adolescence into adulthood, and he doesn't like what he sees. Here is the opening paragraph. If you really want to hear about it, the first thing you'll probably want to know is where I was born and what my lousy childhood was like and how my parents were occupied and all before they had me and all that David Copperfield kind of crap. But I don't feel like going into it if you want to know the truth. In the first place, that stuff bores me. And in the second place, my parents would have about 2 hemorrhages apiece if I told them anything pretty personal about them. They're quite touchy about anything like that, especially my father. They're nice and all, I'm not saying that, but they're also touchy as hell. Besides, I'm not going to tell you my whole goddamn autobiography or anything. This is a wonderful book and I've read it countless times. Of course, it won't have the same impact if you read it when you're 30 or 40 or 50 as it does if you're an adolescent. But if you consider yourself as someone who is an outsider in this mad world, then I'm sure you'll love it. I didn't read books as a kid. I preferred watching TV. But Catcher in the Rye changed all that. So you could say it changed my life. It started me on the path of a lifelong love of literature. The book has been banned by some school boards in the US, which is completely stupid. And some people have misinterpreted its message, such as the guy who shot John Lennon. But these evil people will always find a way to spread a violent and hateful agenda. It's got nothing to do with Catcher in the Rye, which remains a masterpiece and one you should certainly read. Catcher in the Rye is a love it or hate it kind of book. I hope, like me, you'll love it. I talked about the book in very, very serious terms, but it's funny, very, very funny. At first glance, the book seems a little complicated because it uses quite a few slang terms from 1950s America, like phony and running like a bastard and goddamn this and goddamn that. But he repeats the same phrases throughout the book. So once you've learnt them, you know them. The rest of the book is fairly easy to read, and I would say level intermediate will do, intermediate upwards. Now, Salinger was overwhelmed by the success of Catcher in the Rye, the fame and also the unwanted intrusion it brought upon his private life. After that, he published little else. He continued to write, however, privately right up to his death in 2010, and it is said that there are at least 15 novels of his waiting for publication. The Catcher in the Rye is also the most famous novel never to have been made into a film, so you're going to have to read the book. The next book is The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde, written in 1895. I was going to include a book by Oscar Wilde, but I was hesitating between The Picture of Dorian Gray and this one. Both are great, but The Importance of Being Earnest got the vote simply because it's shorter and easier, which this is what this video is all about. It's a play, and it tells a story of Jack Worthing, a pillar of society, and he leads a double life. When he wants to be naughty, he escapes to the countryside on the pretext of going to help his scandalous brother Earnest. Jack and Ernest are the same person. Jack's best friend is Algernon Moncrief, who knows Jack as Ernest and is in love with Jack's cousin Gwendoline, but he starts to get suspicious of Jack, and then Jack goes to the countryside and pretends to be Jack's brother. I think I'm getting confused now. It's something along those lines. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Read it. You'll see it for yourself. The book is hilarious. Every line is a joy. And instead of reading a page from the book, I'll just give you some quotes. My dear fellow, the truth isn't quite the sort of thing one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman. I don't like novels that end happily. They depress me so much. If one plays good music, people don't listen. And if one plays bad music, people don't talk. Ever since I met you, I have admired you more than any girl I have ever met since I met you. I never saw anybody take so long to dress and with such little result. I'm sick to death of cleverness. Everybody is clever nowadays. You can't go anywhere without meeting clever people. The thing has become an absolute public nuisance. I wish to goodness we had a few fools left. We have. I should extremely like to meet them. What do they talk about? The fools? Oh, about the clever people, of course. What fools? The book satirises conventions and cultural norms of Victorian societies. It pokes fun at the institution of marriage as well as the morals and the manners of the day. The other theme is the double life that the two main characters lead. Behind the facade of respectability, there is a darker, naughtier side. Don't we all have a naughtier side? I'm talking to you. Oscar Wilde certainly did. It's an easy read. I would say you could tackle this with a level of lower intermediate. You get that? Lower intermediate. Incidentally, this is the first book I ever read in French when I started learning French. Though my French level was really low, I managed to read this book. I know what you're thinking. I should have chosen a French book, but not the first one. The second one I did. The next book is Animal Farm by George Orwell. It tells a story of a group of animals on a poorly run farm by the alcoholic owner, Mr. Jones, Farmer Jones. One day the animals decide to take control and create a fair, just and equal society where all the animals will be happy. Needless to say, it doesn't work out so well. The pigs take control, led by their leader Napoleon. In the end, the pigs start to resemble the humans they replaced, standing upright and drinking alcohol and mistreating all the other animals. Of course, the book is not really about a farm. It's an allegory about the Soviet Union and the dictatorship of Joseph Stalin. You can also read it as a story about the perils of government and power in general. So there are some heavy themes. I did tell you that the books I've chosen aren't light. Interestingly, the book came out in 1945, just after the Second World War, and many UK publishers refused to publish it. They said it was too anti-Soviet or anti-Stalin, which seems incredible now, but at the time the Soviets had been our allies during the war and anti-Soviet books were not encouraged. Of course, it did get published and is now considered a classic. It's only 112 pages long and easy to read. If you like satire and you have at least a lower intermediate level, there you are, lower intermediate, then you can read this one. Here's a paragraph from the book. The animals are unhappy because the milk and the apples that were supposed to be shared with all the animals have been taken by the pigs. Squealer was sent to make the necessary explanations to the others. "Comrades," he cried, "you do not imagine, I hope, that we pigs are doing this in a spirit of selfishness and privilege. Many of us actually dislike milk and apples. I dislike them myself. Our sole object in taking these things is to preserve our health. Milk and apples, this has been proved by science, comrades, contain substances absolutely necessary to the well-being of a pig. We pigs are brain workers. The whole management and organisation of the farm depend on us. Day and night we are watching over your welfare. It is for your sake that we drink the milk and eat those apples." The next book is The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, 1845. This is an autobiography, as its title suggests. It tells the true story of Frederick Douglass, who grew up as a slave in Maryland and eventually escaped to freedom. Later on in life, he became a spokesman, a speaker, and a statesman. This book is a shocking account of the cruelty and suffering and of the evils of slavery that he experienced firsthand. This is a harrowing account, but at the same time, it tells a story that grabs you and keeps you hooked throughout. Some vocabulary you may need to look up, but it's quite easy in the sense that it's written in a straightforward narrative. It tells a story and you can easily follow that story, even if your English is not the first language. There is, though, power in his words, and it is beautifully written. When it was published in 1845, many skeptical reviewers wrote that there was no way that a black man, probably they use stronger terms than that, could possibly write such an eloquent piece of literature. Now, in spite of that, it became a bestseller in America and in Europe. Douglas went on to write 2 more autobiographies, which expand on the first book and cover the time after he gained his freedom. Now, I haven't read these yet, but I'll also put a link in the description to those too, if you want to investigate further. Here's a quote from the first page of the book. I was born in Tuckahoe, near Hillsborough, about 12 miles from Easton in Talbot County, Maryland. I have no accurate knowledge of my age, never having seen any authentic record containing it. By far the larger part of the slaves know as little of their ages as horses know of theirs, and it is the wish of most masters within my knowledge to keep their slaves thus ignorant. I do not remember to have ever met a slave who could tell of his birthday. They seldom come nearer to it than planting time, harvest time, cherry time, springtime, or fall time. A want of information concerning my own was a source of unhappiness to me even during childhood. The white children could tell their ages. I could not tell why I ought to be deprived of the same privilege. I was not allowed to make any inquiries of my master concerning it. He deemed all such inquiries on the part of a slave improper and impertinent, and evidence of a restless spirit. The nearest estimate I can give makes me now between 27 and 28 years of age. I come to this from hearing my master say, sometime during 1835, I was about 17 years old. The book is only 98 pages long and it's out of copyright. It's free online. I picked up a copy from a bookshop in London for just £1. The level, because it has some complicated words, upwards in upper intermediate. Can you see that? Upper intermediate. The next book is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Now, I'm cheating a little bit here because this book is less easy than the others. I reckon you would need an upper intermediate level to understand it. However, the reason why I'm including it is because, firstly, because it's very, very good, and secondly, because you probably already know the story. There are so many film versions and TV versions, and you can find the audiobook online. It's out of copyright, so once again, it's free. There is so much in the way of support for this, and if that's not enough, you can have a look at the SparkNotes website. I shall put a link to that in the description. SparkNotes summarizes and explains what's happening on every page. So in case you missed something from reading the original text. So go to SparkNotes and it will explain what happened on that page. By the way, SparkNotes is a marvellous resource, not just for Pride and Prejudice, but all the classics. SparkNotes is great for Shakespeare too. If there's a passage in Shakespeare you don't understand, you'll find it rewritten in modern English. Very useful, but we'll talk about Shakespeare another day. I won't say too much about the book because probably you already know the story, but very, very briefly, Mrs. Bennet has 5 daughters and she wants her eldest daughters to get married to someone handsome and rich. And guess what? Some handsome and young and rich young bachelors come to the neighbourhood. There are bulls, there are misunderstandings, there is heartache, there is comedy. Is there a happy ending? Well, dear viewer, I won't say. You have to read it. Here's the first paragraph. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. However little known the feelings or views of such a man may be on his first entering a neighbourhood, the truth is so well fixed in the minds of the surrounding families that he is considered the rightful property of some one or other of their daughters. The next book is Cold Comfort Farm by Stella Gibbons, written in 1932. Stella Gibbons was an English writer, and this was her first book, written at the age of 30, and it was a huge bestseller. Unfortunately, in spite of writing 15 more novels, she was never able to repeat that success. Cold Comfort Farm tells a story of 19-year-old Flora Post, whose parents had both recently died. She decides that she can either get a job or go and live with some relatives. She opts for the latter and receives an invitation from her cousin to live on Cold Comfort Farm. When she arrives, she sees that the place is a mess, and the inhabitants of the farm and the extended family, the workers, they're a strange bunch. Step by step, she goes about changing things at the farm and the lives of the people there. This book is funny. It's a parody of country life and of many of the books written in that era, such as D.H. Lawrence. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. In a non-scientific survey I did with some of my friends, the themes of the book might be a little bit more appreciated by the female reader, but not necessarily. I liked it. Now, let me give you the opening paragraph. The education bestowed on Flora Post by her parents had been expensive, athletic, and prolonged. And when they died within a few weeks of one another during the annual epidemic of the influenza or Spanish plague, which occurred in her 20th year, she was discovered to possess every art and grace save that of earning her own living. Her father had always been spoken of as a wealthy man, but on his death his executors were disconcerted to find him a poor one. After death duties had been paid and the demands of creditors satisfied, his child was left with an income of £100 a year and no property. It's a short book, coming in at 111 pages and very easy to read. You can read this level lower intermediate, I'd say. Anyway, lower intermediate, you can cope with it. Now on to our bonus, a great book that even a beginner, or maybe not beginner, but almost beginner can read. Basic level English. This book makes a great read for anyone starting to learn English, and I often recommend it to my students. Native speakers, of course. If you've got a really good level of English, you can enjoy it too. And it is Tales of American Life, edited by Paul Auster. In the year 1999, Paul Auster asked listeners to NPR, an American radio station, to send in their stories. There are only two rules. One, the story had to be short, and two, they had to be true. And there was an absolutely huge response. He got over 4,000 replies. Auster collected the stories and put what he considered the best 179 in this anthology, which is 490 pages long. That's an average of less than 3 pages per story. Some stories are funny, some are dark, some touch on subjects such as love and pain and sorrow and irony and coincidence, acts of kindness, regret, and what Auster calls miraculous encounters. It's not a classic in the traditional sense, that's why I put it as a bonus, but it's the sort of book you can pick up at any moment, open it at random, and find a great story. Some of the stories are less than a page long, so you can read it whatever your level. Let me read to you the very first story and you'll see what I mean. The Chicken. As I was walking down Stanton Street early one Sunday morning, I saw a chicken a few yards ahead of me. I was walking faster than the chicken, so I gradually caught up. By the time we approached 18th Avenue, I was close behind. The chicken turned south on 18th. At the fourth house along, it turned in at the walk, hopped up the front steps, and rapped sharply on the metal storm door with its beak. After a moment, the door opened and the chicken went in. Linda Elegant, Portland, Oregon. If you read or have read any of these books, please let us know in the comments what you think. By the way, please don't criticize any of these books if you haven't read them. We had that in the last video of book reviews. That's not cool. Read the book first, then criticize. And if you have any easy read English language classics that you think I've left out, then let us know about them too in the comments. Remember, we're talking about English literature here. Translations of foreign literature we'll look at another time. Thank you for watching. Happy reading. See you in the next video. Bye.